Great Britain presents itself as a generous nation. In fact, however, it uses bureaucratic tricks to prevent many refugees from coming from Ukraine. While EU countries have taken in more than 2 million refugees, Britain has barricaded itself behind the technocratic, cumbersome immigration and visa rules the government has implemented since taking office in 2019. When Germany here had already let 50,000 refugees into the country last weekend, the number of British visas was 50. Now they are not even 1,000. After considerable pressure from the opposition and the British media, Home Secretary Priti Patel made at least a small concession in Parliament on Thursday. Persons with a passport from Ukraine who want to escape to family members in Great Britain no longer need to submit their biometric data, that means fingerprints, to visa centers in Poland, the Republic of Moldova, or other refugee areas. Nevertheless, the refugees have to submit complete visa applications online and wait for the British authorities to process them. Slam the door in your face, you could say. It's inhumane. Calais Mayor Natasha Bouchard said this week at the growing number of families with children stranded in the French border town after being turned away by British border officials for lack of valid documents. You cannot claim from the British side that you are welcoming them, and then people who were bombed in their home 8 days ago, who have lost family members and are traumatized, and slam the door in their faces. Prime Minister Boris Johnson repeatedly claims that the UK has taken in more refugees than any other country in the EU since 2015. What is a frickin' lie? According to an analysis by the Full Fact Initiative, however, this only refers to specific resettlement programs and not to the much larger number of asylum applications. According to the Migration Observatory, Great Britain resettled more than 23,000 refugees from 2016 to 2020, mainly from Afghanistan and Syria, and Germany 14,000. However, Germany has approved 903,000 visas and Great Britain almost 54,000. Last year, Great Britain resettled another 7,000 refugees from Afghanistan, while in Germany the number of initial applications from Afghans rose to 23,000. The British Home Office nevertheless presents the UK as a generous nation. On Twitter, the Ministry of the Interior announces the first visa family program for Ukraine in the world, without mentioning that the other European countries are taking in millions of refugees from Ukraine without visas. And not only that, Home Secretary Priti Patel claimed in Parliament, "I confirm that we have set up an extra visa center in Calais, some distance from the port. There are staff on duty there." In reality, however, there was no British visa center in Calais at the time. A note was stuck to the door at the specified location saying, "No visas in Calais," and advising to submit visas in Paris and Brussels. And the reason is, until now, biometric data had to be recorded for all visa applications, and this is only processed by the visa centers commissioned by Great Britain, where the appointments had to be booked weeks in advance. This has now changed, but only for refugees who can show they have some relatives in the UK. Others get nothing. Desperate families who turned up at the alleged visa center in Calais were presented with nothing but chocolate bars and crisps by helpless British Home Office staff. "What's going on?" snapped Labour MP Yvette Cooper at Home Secretary Priti Patel in Parliament. "If you don't even know where the visa centre is, how are the refugees supposed to find it? We're getting statements that it's in Calais, in Lille. The Foreign Minister says there hasn't been a decision yet." Hundreds of refugees have already been turned away, criticized Cooper. Only then did Patel concede that the centre is yet to be set up but some distance from the port, so that we don't get overrun because of all the smuggling, she said. Conservative MP Sir Roger Gale said Patel had misled Parliament. Previously, this would have been a reason to resign, and in other countries as well, but not anymore in this Britain. For years, the British government aimed to reduce the number of refugees and foreign workers. It was one of the most important arguments to push Brexit forward. Years before she was elected Prime Minister, Theresa May, as Minister of the Interior, stirred up a hostile mood in the authorities, a so-called hostile atmosphere. Employees of the authorities systematically accumulated applicants for visas, residence permits, and citizenship. And people from other countries made those experiences. Someone named Sasha said, "I had to wait more than a year for my application to be processed with constantly new requirements." He recalls this, although his wife and son were already based in the UK. And since Brexit, the government has again tightened immigration law and visa and asylum procedures. Applicants who come to Great Britain illegally, for example by boat across the English Channel, in order to apply for asylum there, are even liable to prosecution. Around 20,000 people from Ukraine have now applied for a visa from the British authorities. There are 3 routes by which refugees can get to Britain: the Family Reunification Program, the Ukraine Refugee Sponsorship Scheme, which is not yet operational by the way, and finally even an application as a seasonal worker. You can't treat people like that. If refugees have family members in the UK, they can use the Family Ukraine program but must apply online from abroad and provide documentation to prove they are citizens of Ukraine. This is particularly difficult for refugees with a Russian passport. They must explain where they lived in Ukraine and that they have relatives in the UK. All documents the website requires must be translated. Until now, biometric data had to be transmitted to the visa centers in Budapest, Bucharest, Paris, Warsaw, Chisinau in the Republic of Moldova, or Rzeszów in Poland. In front of the office in Rzeszów, people waited up to 3 hours in sub-zero temperatures with small children and the elderly, without being let into the warmth of the offices before opening time. And that's not how you treat people who haven't slept for days, Marianne Kay told the BBC. She had traveled to Rzeszów to apply for a visa for almost 80-year-old mother. The second option for the refugees is to apply for a visa using the so-called sponsor program. However, according to the government websites, this is not yet working, as I said. Britons who thought they could just go to Calais and collect Ukrainian families and take them to Britain had to leave without having achieved anything. People from my town are doing this, by the way, successfully. Boris Johnson, on the other hand, says that in the long run, hundreds of thousands could possibly come to Great Britain from Ukraine. According to a YouGov poll, a third of the public would like to limit the refugee problem to a small number of resettlements. However, 40% of Britons would be more generous and would also accept tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, from the turmoil of war. But Boris Johnson is still Prime Minister. "We don't want people to be able to enter the UK without any examination," he said. "The security risks are too great, especially since the British government, as the leading nation, organizes resistance to Putin's regime." I don't know what that guy is drinking. British Transport Minister Grant Shapps even claimed to ITV that President Zelensky had asked the government that the refugees stay as close to Ukraine as possible. A lot of refugees that tried Britain will now try it in Germany or France, and they won't have a problem to get to Germany and be welcome here and get every assistance they need. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.